thank you for inviting me. You're in a rare group of people that get to see this firsthand, this interactive presentation. The last time I gave this was in Germany, actually, and I had to try to give it in German. If you can imagine how difficult it is to make a presentation like this in English. And it was in a restaurant that had last been visited by Napoleon or something like that. Anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about the electronic QSL card system. First of all, I'd like to find out how many of you are already registered members of eQSL.cc. Just raise your hand so I can get an idea. Okay. The eQSL.cc system has been around for 11 years now, and it's grown steadily. A lot of people ask, what is that .cc? Why didn't you use .com? And the answer is that the .com was taken by a French limousine company, and they won't give it up. And I've offered them all kinds of money for it, and they won't give it up. So we're stuck with the eQSL.cc. So we say that means Electronic QSL Card Center. So that's the way to remember. I'll go over a couple of the features of the system and try to stay within, what have I got, 45 minutes? Roughly? Try to stay within the time limits. This is the home screen as you'll currently see it in the system. So what are eQSLs? eQSL is a trademark name for electronic QSL cards that are exchanged at eQSL.cc. There are no other eQSLs anywhere in the world. We trademarked that name, and it has nothing to do with some of the emailed QSL cards that existed way back in the early days. eQSLs are exchanged through the internet using a simple web browser. There's no programs to download, no programs to run, no security certificates to buy or anything like that. You just use your browser to access the system. The exchange is done instantly, so when you upload your electronic QSL in the form of a log entry, it is available immediately to the guy that you're sending it to, and he can immediately look at it with his browser, download it, print it, etc. And we are still a free service. We decided a long time ago that the internet model was to provide most everything for free, and then to have additional features that are available at a cost. And so the basic electronic QSL exchange service is free, and about 92% of our members are still getting a free ride. We turned 11 years old in 2009, so we've been around for quite a while, and we ain't going nowhere. The other day I looked at it last night, in fact updated this presentation. We have 138 million electronic QSLs online. So this page of QSLs times 275,000. That's how many eQSLs there are in our database. And in just a minute I'll tell you about how fast it's growing. It's a faster, cheaper way of QSLing. If you have done QSLing in the past, you know how long it takes sometimes to get a QSL card from some of the rare stations. So this is a faster, cheaper way of QSLing. It's also a whole new way of earning awards. And if you can imagine how fast and easy it would be to earn an award where you didn't have to wait for the QSL card to arrive and then bundle it up and submit a claim sheet and mail it off. Now the awards can be issued instantaneously. As soon as the other guy uploads his log, we've got all those credits for you, and we can issue awards very quickly. It's also a whole new way of e-contesting, and we've done a few test contests. But if you can imagine the typical contest where you have multipliers, credits, and I wonder why that went off. and things like that, we can calculate all of those things in the system automatically. Did it overheat or something? You know, in contests, you typically fill out a claim sheet that says, you know, I worked all these stations, and then you add up the points, and then you got these multipliers, and you multiply it out, and you mail this thing off, and they've got to verify it. Well, at the end of the contest, boom, we know everybody that you've worked that has uploaded their logs. So we can give you a certain period of time for everybody to upload their logs, and then at that point, we can just run an algorithm to calculate who's the winner. All the point scores and everything, because those are based on QSLs that come in, not based on a claimed score, and so the calculation can be pretty immediate. Okay. We have over 145,000 members right now. So the people that in the early days were saying, oh, that'll never catch on, we're, how many members does ARRL have? 155,000. So we're growing fast. We have a huge number of people all over the world. We like to say these are not your grandfather's QSL cards. In the early days, yes, a lot of our QSL cards looked alike, and that's because people were using our library graphics and they didn't have a lot of imagination. But now I think anyone would recognize that there's a really cool variety of cards that you can get from all over the place, including some really, really weird ones. I really like the guy's name, too, Paul Gross. We can also give you propagation forecasts not based on theory, but based on actual QSOs. Because we have this database of 138 million contacts, we can say that the propagation forecast for the 20-meter band in the spring at 1500 UTC from Grid Square Echo Mike looks like this. We also now have the capability of looking in real time at what QSOs are going on all over the world and displaying those on Virtual Earth Microsoft type map. And you can't really see this here, but you can zoom down in and you can zoom in on those locations, and when you put your mouse over one of those points, it pops their QSL card up so you can see who it is, and there's some kind of spiffy features. So if you want to figure out, you know, where could I work right now on 15 meters, we can give you that information. So how do you go about getting online? It's really very simple. It only takes a few minutes. There's a little registration form here. We just want your call sign, name, street address, the kind of stuff that you'd want to put on your QSL card, what rigs and antennas and things like that. You've got to identify your DXCC country. And then for purposes of awards, because you may not be working on Worked All States, but somebody else might be working on Worked All States. So you have to drop down, you know, your state, your CQ zone, your 1010 number, things like that, things that other people might be very highly interested in for that QTH. And what you have to do is, if you operate from multiple QTHs, you set up a separate account for each one of these, because this is your QSL card. So you wouldn't want your QSL card for Tucson to have your Phoenix address on it. So you just set up a separate account for each one. And they can all be linked together so that they all share the same membership information and everything. As soon as you do that, it'll send you an email with a 4-digit sign-up code. And then you key that 4-digit sign-up code into here, assign yourself a password, and from then on you just use your call sign and password to get into the system. And that's all it takes, and you're ready to start exchanging eQSLs. So no more stamps, no more envelopes wasting away at the bureau, no more expensive printing costs, no more waiting years for a QSL to arrive. You can design your eQSL graphic using your own photos, or we have several different libraries of different graphics of all kinds, locations, futuristic stuff, radio gear, all sorts of things. So the primary areas of concern once you log into the system are your inbox and your outbox. The inbox is the list of all the eQSLs that you've received, and they'll be categorized. This is a table of contents page that will list the bands, the modes, the dates, and the countries. And so you can go drill down and you can say, I just want to look at the new incoming cards for the 80-meter band, or just my SSB cards, or just the ones from Indonesia, or whatever. And you can drill down, and then it'll bring up a page that lists just those. And you can sort them different ways, you can filter them different ways, and so on. And then, so you'll have line by line with the call sign and the date and time and band mode and so on. And then on the far left, there's a display button and a mail button. When you click the display button, it'll pop up a screen that'll show you that actual card. So that's IZ5EME, and it's got all of your QSO information down at the bottom using whatever design he created. Or you can click the mail button, and if you put a little bit of money into your postage account, if you don't have a good printer, you want a really nice looking card printed on cardstock, you choose whether you want the QSO information on the front of the card overlaid on the graphic or on the back side of the card so it doesn't mess up the graphic. And we'll actually print those, and we do a print run every week, and we'll print them off on postcards and then we'll mail those to you. So that's for people that don't have a decent printer. Otherwise, from this page right here with the display of the card, you can click on the little link down there. It says printable 4x6 A6 format. You can just click on that and then just print it off on your inkjet printer, and voila, you've got the card. Or you can right-click on it and save it on your disk somewhere if you want to do it that way. Once you've displayed a card, it immediately gets whisked away into your archive. And so that way you can separate out the cards you have seen from the cards that you haven't seen yet. If you get cards from people and you look at them and you go, I didn't work that guy, click the reject box. This is the way that we enforce a little bit of honesty in the system. There are people out there that are looking at DX spots and they're busting calls and sending them and trying to get eQSLs fraudulently. We'll nab those guys if we find them, and we have some sophisticated capabilities. If we look across a guy's log and he's worked 15 different bands all within the same second of time, then we start scrutinizing him very carefully. And we've had to shut a couple of guys down, typically in Russia, but in other places too, who feel like that, that's the way they want to earn their rewards, is fraudulently. So if you get one that's not right, just click the reject box. It'll let the guy on the other end know that you rejected his card, and you can specify a reason. You can say it was the wrong band. This was 15 meters, not 10 meters, and then he'll make the correction and then resend it to you, and you'll get it. Or he'll say, oops, caught me, and delete it. So there's a couple of different ways of getting your eQSLs into the system. It's quite simple. In the very beginning, there was the manual log entry, and it brings this little screen up. You key in the call sign, you pull down the date, key in the time, pull down the band and the mode, key in RST and some comments if you want to. Save it, immediately goes into the database and is now instantly available for the other guy to download. So that's the manual way. Within about a year after we launched this, I started talking to the guys that developed the ADIF log standard, and we worked out some things, and a lot of loggers were starting to be able to export ADIF format. So we wrote an import program that will take your ADIF log export and import that into your outbox. So that is currently the best way to get your log uploaded. And what we recommend people do is don't wait for the other guy to send you a QSL. Just upload your whole log every time. Because if everybody's waiting for somebody else to do something, then what happens? Nothing gets done. So if everybody just uploads their whole log, it will kick out the duplicates, and so you don't have to worry about that. And then everybody's log will be uploaded, and everybody will be getting QSLs, and everybody will be happy. The third thing that's happened is that a few years ago we started working with some of the logger authors, and you see here a short list of some of the log programs. There are now quite a few more than that. And there's a column over there in the middle that says real-time. And those that say real-time can actually upload one QSO as you're doing it into our database. So those have the capability of either batching up a whole ADIF log, or you do a QSO and you log it and it immediately uploads it into our system. So those are real time, and that's what allows us to do things like the propagation maps that shows what's going on in the world. So it's like the ultimate DX spot because it's based on actual log information, not based on what somebody may have heard. So that's the ultimate, and this is probably the future of logging. So everything that you've uploaded, whether it's manual entry or from the ADIF, goes into your outbox. Now, you can use us as a cheap logging program if you want to. If you don't like computers and programs and you don't have a logging program, you can use that little manual entry and you can enter in your QSOs one at a time, and you can use us as a cheap logging program because you can display these here, you can sort them different ways, you can filter them, and you can pull them up and edit them if you need to, make changes, and so on. And that's all in your outbox. Now, way back before ARRL launched Logbook of the World, there was a lot of arguing about how our system was insecure and you know, it was just open to fraud and everything. And I created an identity protection system, basically. I could go in here right now and register as W1AW. Yeah, I know that. I could register as W1AW, and I could upload a whole bunch of logs and send out a bunch of eQSLs as W1AW. Or as P5ABC, or whatever. So we knew that, and what we decided to do is actually what Logbook of the World copied, and that is to make sure that you have to authenticate yourself before you can use your electronic QSLs for anything important like awards. So it's one thing to get a QSL card that says P5ABC, I worked him on 20 meters sideband, wow, this is really pretty cool, but it doesn't have the authenticity guaranteed stamp on it until they verify their identity. So how do you verify your identity? There's a couple of different ways. The easiest one is just scan your ham license or take a picture of it with your digital camera and then upload it. And we have volunteers that are trained to look at licenses and figure out whether they were forged or not. Don't go to the FCC ULS and download the license and then upload that. We already know what those look like. I can download the W1AW license and then pretend to be W1AW. So we want to see that safety paper that's only on the license, or we want to see the signature that you are signing to your fraud, or we want to in some other way know that this is a paper document that only you could have. Now, we could have just as easily had you upload your driver's license or your passport or something else that positively identifies you, but a ham license is good enough. If you don't have this, if you've gone to the expedition and they issue some kind of weird thing from their telecommunications government bureau, scan it, upload it. If we have a problem, we'll contact you or whatever. But we've now seen so many of these that we pretty much can scan that, and then we can pop up a list of all the other licenses for that country that we've reviewed and see if it looks like it's bogus or not. Probably the main thing that we would need is just some way of identifying that call sign for the club is on somebody's license that is able to register and upload it. So if you're the trustee or if you're a member or whatever, as long as we've got a license for that call sign that matches that call sign, and if not, because we've got more and more clubs registering, we're starting to work with the volunteers to make sure that they understand that there may be trustees that are changing hands, that we've got a whole succession that we've got to work out. Yeah. So we're going to start identifying club stations specifically so that we know, okay, this is a club station that's going to have some special considerations. When the trustee leaves and somebody else takes over, we've got to, change the email address and reissue passwords and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And if you run into a problem, if one of our volunteers says, no way, just contact me, because I know the kinds of things that happen there. So, yeah. Okay, this is a good point. We're not trying to verify that you're authorized to operate a ham radio station, or that you're eligible right now to operate, that you have an unexpired license. All we want to know is your identity. So this license could actually be 10 years old, and as long as it positively identifies who you are, and we don't think that somebody could have stolen this and then presented themselves as you, we don't care if it's an expired license or not. So there's no need to re-upload every time your license expires or renews or anything like that. And this is thank you for bringing that up, because it's an important point. We are not trying to verify your eligibility to operate a radio station. We're just trying to identify you. Okay? And the best way to do that is with a document that only you could have in your possession. The second way, if you don't have a digital camera, you don't have a scanner, if you are in the United States or Canada, we can electronically access the databases for FCC and RAC to get your official address. And for $1, you can have us mail you a little postcard that we go out and ping the FCC, get your official address, and we'll mail that postcard to that official address, and it has a secret code on it. And then once you get that in the mail, you come back here, you key that secret code in, and we know that you're the right guy. So if you've moved, go change your FCC registered address, because otherwise we can't send it to any address other than the official FCC registered address. That's our way of verifying. And by the way, that is the method that LOTW is using, is to mail you something that you have to use to identify yourself. So now that we've got all these logs, we can issue a whole set of awards based on QTH information and the QSO information. So we have our own EDX 100, which is our equivalent of the DXCC, and E worked all states, etc. Well, let's get to these one by one. The EDX is for 25 countries, and this is one of the awards we allow shortwave listeners to also apply for. It's very popular among shortwave listeners. Once you've got 25 countries, you can go to the My Awards screen, and it'll immediately pop up a little apply button. It'll tell you how many countries you've got, and you can apply for it. It usually takes about a day or so. We've got a very, very dedicated group of award managers that review these things, and they generally award them either the same day or within 24 hours of the application. The EDX, you can print the certificate on your own printer, and you're done. Voila, EDX. The EDX 100 is for 100 countries, just like the DXCC. Again, you can print a free certificate, or if you really want a cool plaque, you can order a walnut plaque. We have a worked all states. Again, the same thing. Our plaque in this case is a really cool one with in the shape of the United States, and or you can print the free certificate at home. We have an EZ40, which we renamed. It used to be called the EWAZ until Rich Moseson called me up and said, "Dave, we've worked long and hard to establish the WAZ. Would you mind changing your award to something else?" And I said, Sure, Rich, we'll rename it EZ40. And that's because a few months later, they decided to accept our electronic QSLs for all the CQ awards. So we have great relationship with CQ Magazine. We also have an eGrid award. Right now, it is only for satellite and for UHF. It's basically like a VUCC based on grid squares. Let's talk about e-contests again. I've already mentioned that we've done a couple of e-contests. We will probably do more contests. We've created a whole engine so that any organization can come to us that is creating a contest of some kind, and we can build a scoring module for them that at the end of the contest will automatically score that whole contest and tell who the winners and the losers are, and give all the point scores and everything. And we think this could be a really nice way of cutting down the amount of labor that's involved in running a contest. Oh yeah. Okay, new era in amateur radio contesting. Scores are based on actual confirmed contacts, not claims. And you don't need an exchange because we already know where you are. We already know your information. There's a whole list of organizations that have been accepting electronic QSLs. So when somebody says, nobody accepts those, they're quite wrong. There's quite a list. Now, they may not be ARRL, but they're about, at this point, the only organization that doesn't accept them anymore, and that's because they have their own system that they have to make money with. But we've got a whole list here. You can go to this page and bring up a whole list of all the different organizations that accept electronic QSLs. And of course, in February, we finally got all of our CQ award interface working, so that I worked with the 4 award managers for CQ and gave each one of them a management page so that they could pull up all the applications from our system, and they could verify every one of those QSLs if they wanted to. If they had any question about any, they can go drill down, they can go see the actual, information about each person that was applying, so that they could verify to their own satisfaction that none of those contacts were bogus. And so they've been issuing Worked All Zones, WPX, CQDX, and USACA awards. And you can submit mixed eQSL and hard copy to the CQ awards. We have over 300 countries represented. Basically, anybody that's in the ham radio world is on our system. The United States is the largest group. It represents about 50%, and then the rest of the world is the other 50%. We have quite a large number from England, Germany, Japan, Canada, Italy, Argentina, France, Spain, Poland, Russia, and so on down the line. This is our growth curve. The top one is electronic QSLs. The bottom one is users, members, and there is no letting up. So the people that say, ham radio, isn't that kind of peaked and dying off now? Well, no, it's at least not from our viewpoint. It's continuing to grow, and in the case of the cards, it's kind of an exponential growth. I just looked at this last night. Every minute, so while I've been standing here for 30 minutes, times 90 eQSLs being uploaded. 90 eQSLs being uploaded every minute. Probably any of you that have not registered on eQSL, if you work HF, you've probably got cards sitting there for you, because all those guys are uploading their whole logs, including all the contacts with you. So they're all sitting there waiting for you. All you got to do is register and go get them. So how does this pay for itself? Well, like I said before, the basic service is free. About 92% of our people don't pay a dime for it. And we wanted to do that because I still get these guys from, an internet cafe in Albania on a dial-up line that for them $5 is a lot of money. And they sure are happy that it's for free. And the guys that are in Japan and Norway that can afford to throw $30 in an envelope, they'll do that. And then there's this one sheikh in Oman that I get a check for $600 for. So whatever you can, if you can afford $600, that's nice. And if you can't afford anything, then use it for free. It's a free system. And the basic QSL exchange is free. So then what we do is we add additional membership levels that give you additional features. So a bronze membership is $5 for a year, and that entitles you to work to get all of these awards and to use a lot of additional things like some of the graphics libraries, the ability to upload your own graphic, and things like that. So for the price of a Starbucks, once a year, you get the entrance level. And then we have a silver membership level. It's $30 for a year. And then we have a gold lifetime membership. So eQSL.cc is the final courtesy, fast and free. Sign up as soon as you get home. There's a little box in the corner of the screen where you can put in your call sign, and it'll tell you how many cards are sitting there waiting for you. And all you got to do is register and go download them. Any questions? Use UTC. Yeah, because it was 12 hours exactly, or 6 hours or whatever. Yeah. 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 That's one of the problems is people are forgetting to use UTC. One of the other interesting things is your logger uses the start of the QSO and the other guy's logger uses the end of the QSO as the time. So we have to put in some time tolerance stuff in there so that we detect, yeah, it's the same QSO, but it's 15 minutes apart, or whatever. I don't remember off the top of my head. I shouldn't have said 15 minutes, but I think it may be an hour. I can't remember for sure. Yes? Yes, we will add band-specific and mode-specific awards. We have, first of all, while we're all sitting here enjoying dinner, I have this group of dedicated volunteers that are sitting at home on their computers, answering emails, hundreds of them every few days, reviewing licenses, reviewing award applications, and all this kind of stuff, without whom I couldn't be doing this. They're my advisory board members, and they're all over the world, translating this whole site into multiple different languages. You can now log in and run the whole thing in German, in French. We got Polish, Portuguese, Russian, Japanese, on and on and on. And these are all volunteers that are doing that. So I got to do some programming to do that, and then we've got to make sure that we've got award managers that can handle that additional workload. But yes, we will definitely do that. That'll bring me up to another point, which is county hunting. Anybody here do county hunting? County hunting? No county hunters? Okay. Well, good. Then I won't go into it in detail. Okay. One of the problems, as I mentioned to you in the very beginning, was you need to create an account for each QTH. So now imagine that you're one of those guys that likes to drive across country and make contacts from 100 different locations. Well, that means you've got to set up an account for every one of those 100 different locations. It's a bit of a pain right now. That is really the only way to do it, because that's the way the whole system works for seeing what your QTH is and for generating the proper eQSL graphic and for giving all the awards information and so on. One of the big huge things that I'm working on, hopefully done by the end of this year, but I don't know, is the ability to upload an ADIF file. The new ADIF 2.x specification allows you within each QSO record to have a new QTH information, so grid, square, county, and all that kind of stuff. And what would happen is, as you upload that file, it would automatically generate all the necessary QTH accounts for all of those contacts. And my test bed for this is going to be my airplane. Because if I'm making contact at 165 miles an hour, I'm going to cover lots and lots of territory. And so I'm actually working with a couple of different logger publishers to write software that will use GPS input to identify the QTH, go look up the county, go look up the grid square, calculate it, whatever, and log that QTH automatically so that you don't have to go key in, I am now in Pima County, I am now in, so on. So those are all kinds of things that we're working on over the next year or so. Yes? No, we don't, and it's because the Cabrillo format is basically a human-readable format, and we just didn't do it because the ADIF is easier for us to parse and read with the computer, and most of the loggers had ADIF output format, and so it never really became an issue where there were so many people that had only Cabrillo that we needed to do it, so we just never did. It takes up a lot more space than the ADIF format file, and so there were just a lot of reasons. Once we bring it in, we parse out each record and we stuff it onto our own database anyway, so the space isn't really an issue. Transmission times might be a little bit, but it was mostly just because the ADIF has been evolving, and I'm a member of the ADIF developers group, and every couple of days we're discussing some new feature to add to ADIF. And so while that is continuing to progress, Cabrillo is pretty well fixed, and so it won't be supporting a lot of the new things that we're going to be doing. Upload to us in ADIF, and then we download in Cabrillo or something like that. Well, you're going to use a logger to log all of your contacts, and then you export to us in ADIF, and you export the Cabrillo file and submit that to the contest. Yeah, most of them have all of those output formats. Yeah. Well, we have talked about converting ADIF into an XML format. There's no real driving economic reason to change everything around. Everybody would have to support backward compatibility anyway. It doesn't really buy anything because the two formats are functionally, they work the same way. They work a little bit differently, but they can all contain the same information. The only advantage would be a new logger author that comes in and says, hey, I want to write a logging program for ham radio, would find it easier to export XML format. But most of these guys have already got all their software written, and there's no real economic justification to suddenly change. Most of you guys would never be able to tell the difference between an ADIF and an XML format anyway, so it really doesn't serve a whole lot of purpose. Yes? We started a new little feature that you can find on the left-hand column that's, I think we call it the oldest confirmed QSOs in our database. And in order to be listed in that, both people have to be authenticity guaranteed, and it has to be a confirmed contact. And we've got some going back into the 50s. So these are guys that made these contacts. They're still alive, and they've uploaded those logs into the system, and that's pretty cool. We think that's pretty slick. Yes? Okay. If you change calls, what you want to do is remember that the account that you set up is going to have a QSL card associated with it that's going to have that call sign on it and that address information and everything. So if you now change calls, you don't want to go in there and edit that account, because then all of the old cards will have that new call sign on it too. So what you want to do is create a new account, and you can do that real easily by going into My Profile and then My Accounts, and down at the very bottom it says Create a New Attached Account. So you create a new attached account with a new call sign, with new QTH information, and it will be attached to that other one so that you can move back and forth between different QTH accounts real easily. They'll all share the same membership, so if you've got a bronze or a silver, they'll all have that same bronze or silver. It will automatically apply for authenticity guaranteed. If you've got it on one, when you create the new attached account, it will automatically have that request put in, which will usually get approved within a day or so. So you could end up having however many different QTHs and call signs you could have that many different accounts. And so then the only thing you got to do is make sure you only upload the log for that account into that account, and so on. Make sure you keep your logs separate. The mistake people make is that they go in and edit their QTH information. Well, now somebody finally registers with eQSL, and they go to pull up your QSL card from 2 years ago, and it's got this new address you just put in. And they say, wait a minute, I worked him in Nevada, not in Arizona. So you got to create a new account for each new QTH or for each new call sign. But it's real easy to do and real quick. Yes, sir. Yes. Right. In fact, that's a related question to the one that you mentioned just now. When you change call signs, you want to put a termination date on that old call sign so that the next guy that gets issued that call can actually register with us. Because what will happen is, if that call gets reissued, he's going to try to register, and it's going to say, "Nuh-uh, that call's already taken out to 2020." And then he'll contact us, and we'll find out, it's because he's got a new call, and then we'll have to send you an email and say, hey, would you mind changing the date on that to the correct ending date? So same thing with one by ones. If you've got that one by one for 1 day, you set the starting and ending dates and times for that call sign. And then same thing for changing call signs. Make sure you put a termination date on that old call and the correct new date on the new call, and so on. So, and this is, again, if, let's say I'm N5UP, and now that the FCC doesn't enforce the zone at the end, if I operate from California, I can still operate as N5UP without /6. Well, somebody sends me a card because they work me in California. How am I going to know when that card comes in? He just sends it to N5UP for a QSO on today's date, October 13th. How does the system know whether that goes in my California account or in my Texas account? Well, it does it on the basis of date and time. So, excuse me, when I go to California, I need to set a termination date on my Texas account as of October yesterday, and the California account starts today and goes till tomorrow, and so on. And that way, when the card comes in, you can have no overlapping dates and times with the same identical call sign, and so the system will know automatically where to triage that card into. Yes. Our award software knows if you're doing a worked all states and the rule says that all these contacts have to be made from within the same state, it will make sure that any of those attached accounts that you've been using, that it only uses the ones that were in the same state for credits. And our software does that automatically. Any other questions? Do you have any old paperwork for you know? Yeah. Now, one of the things that we'll do is that if you have authenticity guaranteed for your home call sign now, we will give you the benefit of the doubt that you're not lying to us about the other call signs. Because mainly what we're trying to do is verify that it's really you and not some hacker. We're not trying to verify that you're going to always tell the truth. I mean, nobody can do that. Logbook of the World can't do that. We're mainly trying to make sure that it really is you and not some hacker that's downloaded some logs off of some website. And we do have a very industrious guy in Russia who scans the internet for people that post their whole log online. And he will then download all of that stuff and then say he's a shortwave listener and he heard all those contacts. And he uploads these by the millions, and we have software that goes through and goes, look at this. This guy heard 500 different QSOs in the same second across 15 different bands. How amazing, because he doesn't change the times or anything. He just mass uploads it. So then we have to shut him down and flag his account and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's a feature worth mentioning. You can download your outbox or your inbox in ADIF format. So in the case where you have a hard disk crash and you've lost all your logs, you can re-download them back out of our system and reconstruct your logs. Now, I'll warn you that we don't carry all of the information. So we carry only the pieces of information that we're needing, and so that may not include all of your antenna aiming stuff and all of your comments and things like that. But at least it's kind of a last-ditch backup, and you're not the only one that's used that feature. So. Yeah, we only accept the ADIF format for uploads. We also have a real-time interface that we publish. Okay. So for the graphic itself, JPEG and GIF, basically. You may be able to get away with PNG format. I think it gets converted, but JPEG and GIF are the two that we support because our software has to be able to take that graphic and then take the QSO details and superimpose it and create a whole new graphic with that. So it's got to be JPEG or GIF. Yeah. Any other questions? In the back there. Yes, yeah. It's not really a source object, but I know it is a source object. In the very beginning, I had conversations with Bill Moore and Wayne Mills, David Sumner, and tried to talk them out of Logbook of the World. I said, look, we've already got a system that's working. Use this. We'll build you whatever interface you want. We'll build you an interface directly into your computers. And they said, you don't understand. We don't have computers. We hand key this stuff into DBase 3 on a PC, and so the way the conversations went was basically they had some people that were in the data security business that really, really wanted military-grade encryption on this stuff. And nobody's going to be able to generate a fraudulent DXCC. And I tried to convince them that we're just a bunch of ham operators. We don't need military-grade encryption. It's going to be so complicated, nobody will be able to figure it out. They gave me the sample programs, and I said, I can't figure this out. How are you going to convince all these guys how to do it. I met with Wayne Mills at a Dayton Hamvention, and we had a great, cordial conversation. We went, sat outside, and ate hot dogs on the curb. And when it was all over, he said this surprising thing. He said, "Well, I'm really glad that I met you. You're not at all the way I had heard," or something like that. It was like, the horns, I don't see the horns that I was picturing. So somehow he had gotten this image of me as being some kind of devil. But he basically said, I don't really have control of this. The DXCC program there are people that do think of it as a holy grail of some kind that they must protect at all costs, and I can't override it. So then I said, well, what could we change in our system so that you would accept our cards? Well, Bill Moore came along and said, well, if you would set it up so that both people so that each eQSL has to be confirmed, and that you can't see any cards that have come in for you until you have confirmed by uploading your own, then we'll accept that. So we switched that on, and about 90% of our members mutinied and said, we're quitting. This is ridiculous. We got into this because we want the QSL cards. We don't care about DXCC. So we said, okay, apologize, sorry, we're going back. We're not going to do it that way. Our members want the QSL cards. That's what they're into. They're not into DXCC necessarily. They want the QSL cards. So let's give them the QSL cards. So just a real quick little aside. Back in 1975, I was in college in Arkansas, and I was operating an HW101 out of my dorm room with a long wire antenna. And there was this kid, 14 years old or whatever, in high school in a little town close by, and he created this thing that he called the Arkansas Teenage Net. And I used to log into the Arkansas Teenage Net, and it was fun. And I loved listening to this guy sign his call sign, because he had this great Arkansas accent. So he goes, "Hi, this W5IGF, Joel." So Joel and I were great friends in college. So I'll be damned if he doesn't get voted president of ARRL. So I said, "Joel, old buddy, old pal, remember when I used to be the net control station for your little Arkansas Teenage Net back in '75? Dave, I know what you're going to ask me, and I have no control over the whole Logbook of the World thing. That is run by headquarters, Dave Sumner. The president of ARRL is powerless over those over those people, essentially." Now, Joel is a great guy, and I just think that there are some sort of powers that be at ARRL and among the membership and among the DXCC honor roll that see that as such a hallowed program that they're unwilling to give up this level of security that they think that the security certificates gives them. And maybe someday they'll realize that it's just a hobby, and we can all get along. Meanwhile, I am working with the DARC to have a really top-notch, sophisticated server-to-server communication system where their members can go pick what contacts they want transmitted to the DARC servers to generate automatic forwards there, just like we're doing with CQ Magazine. So, except even more sophisticated. So we'll see where it goes from there. And the other thing that's kind of on the horizon, and you guys are the first ones to hear this. I'm not even sure I should say it, but I am, because we did a little survey and found out that about 40% of our members are on Facebook. How many of you here are on Facebook? Okay, well, not 40%, but so my son talked me into getting on Facebook, and I could see some advantages to a Facebook style of interface where you can post a calendar of your activities if you're going to be operating mobile from a certain county, or if you're on a DXpedition or whatever, or where somebody might want to subscribe to your operating activities and find out what are you going to be doing, or where you might want to upload some pictures of your shack and let other people see them. where you might want to be able to join a UHF group or a satellite group or whatever, and then have the groups be able to have their own forum and discussion boards and things like that. Clubs be able to have their own group and then create contests and be able to have the automatic scoring and all those kind of things. So I'm kind of creating a Facebook style of interface that'll be an option if you want to do it that way. That'll let you see what your other buddies are doing in the ham radio world, whether they're right next door or across the world somewhere. So that's kind of in the works. Any other questions? Okay. Searcy, Arkansas. Yeah. Were you there in 1975 when the big tornado came through there and messed up north of Little Rock? Yeah. You remember? Okay. That's a small world. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.